Welcome to Booked All Night, the podcast for book lovers and storytellers who should probably be getting more sleep than they normally do. I'm your host, Jessica Mary, and I'm joined weekly by Leigh and Magdalyn Ann as we geek out over books and the craft of writing them. This week, we're finishing our discussion on Alicia Jasinska's This Fatal Kiss. This is your spoiler warning. If you haven't finished This Fatal Kiss, then come join us another time. And just a quick announcement before we start. Visit link.bio/bookedallnight. Again, that is lnk.bio/bookedallnight to visit our site, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and join our new Discord community where you'll have access to giveaways, exclusive excerpts, and the ability to sit in on our author interviews live. By the time this episode airs, you'll already have missed out on 2 live author events. All right, my little Libernauts, buckle up, settle in, and let's launch back into This Fatal Kiss. So before we get into our overall thoughts, I do want to cover the events that happened in 31 to 45, because there was a lot that happened just at St. John's Eve. You know, even before we get into like some of the fights that happen in the end, we've got everybody letting loose and letting their guard down. We meet one of Kajik's exes. Kajik and Alexei have that kiss, the fight between the Rusalka and Rosa, Gisella's potion drinking and the consequences thereof, the lengths to which both Alexei and Kajik go to for her, the actual, like, titular kiss, and the ending, and I think all 3 of our ire at where this book ends.
I wouldn't call it ire necessarily, but it definitely did evoke, what do you mean this is the end of it?
Yeah.
Where's the rest?
Yeah.
I felt like that scene, the whole, like, you could have been a contender, like, you could have been a 5-star, just not solely based off the ending, but, like, had that ending been, like, wrapped up very nice and neat with a tight bow, I probably would have overlooked everything else and been, like, 5 stars.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just feels like it's a setup for a sequel.
It does, and it also feels like it was an editor's choice, and I don't think, like, the writer's choice. And I want to get to that later, because I will complain about this at length, because I finished it before the 2 of you, and then I was just like, somebody finish this book, I need to complain.
Yeah, my memory's too terrible for me to be able to read it in advance before recording day, so usually I read it the day before or the day of.
Oh, fun.
So far it's worked for me. I'm not sure how much longer I can get away with it.
There is this really awkward moment between Gisela and Kajik at the beginning of St. John's Eve. She comes out, she's wearing the dress that Kajik bought for her, and she's like, so what do you think? How do I look? He's like, you look fine. Like, well, you're not even looking. I don't need to, because you look good in anything. And he has this moment of like, I did not mean to say that out loud. There's a whole bunch of like physical reactions that he gets where like his ears are heating up and the back of his neck because he's blushing because embarrassed that he said it. And I was like, oh, that's so adorable. And he has a moment around there where he talks about that story with the monk and the water nymph, which gets repeated a couple times throughout This Fatal Kiss. And he's like, well, I should have just kissed her, because then, you know, she wouldn't have to do all this for Alexei. And I was just like, no kidding. Like, you don't say.
It's okay. They're just young and stupid, you know?
Absolutely.
They are. He caught Gisella's dumb in this last act.
If you didn't think she was dumb before, you sure as hell will think it now.
Yes, seriously.
But you're right. They are kids, and their focus is to get this mission done, right? Get Alexei to kiss Gisela, and then get her out of here. You know? So I think their focus, clouds their mind.
Yeah, it never really occurs to them that there could be alternate resolutions until, you know, it presents itself in their almost kiss. And then again, when they're, you know, facing each other for the first time after that, and they're like, oh no, they're pretty. I'm very awkward and embarrassed now.
Yeah. I thought it was really cute, because there's some other stuff that happens at St. John's Eve, everybody is drinking. And part of it allows them to let loose, right? Like Khajiit shows up without his glasses because, he's there to party and you can't party with your glasses on. And everybody makes...
Can't be you can't complete your your nerd to prettiness transformation without getting rid of the glasses. You know that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
I mean, no one could tell that Superman was Clark Kent because of the glasses.
She's all that kind of transition, taking his glasses off, and everyone's like, wow, Khajiit is actually hot. Even though he's short.
I was thinking it was the Princess Mia Thermopolis glow up. He's the new Princess of Genovia. Mm-hmm.
There's also a spot in there where he's like, oh, why is she looking at me like that? Did I put too much hair wax in my hair? I'm like, no, she likes you, you dolt. What is happening?
Listen, there's only one thing stupider than teenagers, and that's teenagers in love, so I don't blame him.
Oh, no. No, I would like to cite teenagers in love with alcohol in their system.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that did not make them any smarter.
Nope.
And there was only really one issue that I had with that, because I'm like, teens drink, and I know that I should be like, oh my god, you shouldn't, but you do, and I'm not your parents. When Alexei and Khajiit go into the woods, because Alexei is just like, oh, come into the woods, we'll go look for this special flower. And again, I'm just like, danger, please don't. You are the worst exorcist, don't go into the woods.
And the flower is also a metaphor for bonkin'?
Yeah, that's all those kids do, is they're like, yeah, let's go look for the flower, and they're just bumping uglies in the forest. Like, nobody is fooled by this particular metaphor. Alexei and Khajiit have a kiss, and Khajiit just kind of lays into it. And afterwards, both Khajiit and Alexei both say something to the point that they probably would not have done it had they not been drinking. And I don't like that. I don't like that it took away the autonomy of what just happened.
Though, did we ever get confirmation that Alexei even drank? Because I don't remember him even in his narration saying that he was drunk. I just remember Gisela being all like lightheaded and loopy, and so was Khajiit, but I felt like Alexei wasn't, he's got that demon metabolism working for him. I don't know if he actually was drunk.
Yeah, no, Alexei was also, like, honestly, as the narration went on, I didn't think that they were drunk.
Yes.
Which is why when the lines came up that they were both like, oh, I wouldn't have done that had I not been drinking tonight, I was kind of put off by that, because it made it feel like neither one of them wanted what happened in the woods to happen. And I felt like that took away from their representation.
I mean, to be fair, later in Alexei's point of view, we do get that he said he only kissed Khajiit to keep Khajiit's attention off of Rosa.
Yes, but he also notes that he wouldn't have enjoyed it. He didn't expect himself to enjoy it as much as he did.
So then what's the case? Is it he wouldn't have kissed him unless he was drunk, or did he kiss him to keep the distraction off of Rosa?
All good questions.
It kind of negates what it was saying.
Yeah.
But I also want to bring up, with the time and the place that the story takes in, especially in European countries, the drinking age is a lot lower than the drinking age in the U.S.
Also true.
So teens drinking on St. John's Eve, it would most likely be that teens are drinking because
they're allowed to.
They're probably allowed to drink any other time.
That's true, because the U.S. was like, we'll raise the drinking age. That'll stop them. Sure.
Because, banning a thing is definitely the best way to make sure it doesn't happen.
Best way.
Right? I know that when I get told no, I take that for the final answer. I certainly don't want to keep doing whatever I've been told I'm not allowed to do anymore.
I certainly wouldn't want to cross state lines to do something that is illegal in one state, but totally legal and necessary in another.
I'm sure you're talking about abortion, but my first thought was fireworks, because they were illegal in New Jersey for a long time.
That's fair.
I was just going to say, I did not drive across state lines for fireworks at all.
We're all law-abiding citizens here.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, back to the point.
Absolutely.
Anyway, fireworks. So yeah, I didn't like that, but like right around then too, Wojciech comes out of his palace, and he's very clearly looking for Gazella because Gazella has the potion, and she's taken the potion. And he's looking around, and she's like, "Oh, I should walk in whatever direction he is not," And he eventually catches up to her, and this is another like really humorous moment. He's like, "Oh, hello, Gazella. You're looking awfully human this evening. Oh, and you're looking youthful as always. Oh, ancient one, what's your secret?" I moisturize.
The way I cackled at that. I just sat there for like 10 minutes. That was the funniest line.
That was my favorite line of the book.
Yeah.
Yes, 100% my favorite moment. Like, it gets funnier the more deadpanned you imagine him reading it. Like, no emotion whatsoever on his face. I moisturize. What the hell did you do? Like,
I mean, he's had so many years to perfect that sarcasm, so
yes.
I can definitely see that.
Speaking of so many years, he also notes, because this is where she gives him the teacup, which comes up later. But no water nymph had ever gifted Wojciech a teacup before, and he's, ancient.
That was so sad and so sweet at the same time.
Right?
And especially because at first that gift wasn't even supposed to be a bribe for the potion. Like that came after Gisela was told by the other Rusałki that, oh yeah, Wojciech's got this magic human potion, hidden in his room. And she's like, interesting. Now this gift has a double purpose.
I do also like the fact that with the timing, she didn't technically give it to him as a gift as a bribe this time. So it like literally comes full circle. Like she bought it just as a gift. Oh hey, I can use that as a bribe. But then that moment passes and she still just gives it to him as a gift. I thought that was also cute.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet. And then it comes up later because the kiss happens between Alexei and Kajik, which was like, oh, okay. And Gazella sees them. And that was heart-wrenching for Kajik, and she goes running off, and we finally find out how Gisela sank so fast, and it's because she hit her head and cracked it open, and that's why she went down, because she was bleeding out. And the path that she takes when she runs away ends up being the one that she took the night that she died. And then the Rusalka kind of come up like Avenger style, and they beat the shit out of Rosa, who is trying to possess Gisela, and they put her in the teacup.
I loved that.
Yeah, the line was something like, oh, thank goodness Wojciech had this empty teacup lying around.
Yeah, like, yes, how fortunate to have.
That feels like an actor coming onto a stage play, pointing at the gun mounted over the fireplace, and go, "Hey, look, a gun!"
Aha! Wojciech's tinkling teacups, the new plot device.
I just wonder how he makes his tea.
Ooh, does he even drink tea? He's mostly surrounded by water. Does he just kind of throw the tea leaves into the air and then, let them steep for a couple minutes before just through the air?
That's what I'm saying. I want to know how he makes his tea.
Probably very strong. He's got to put up with how many deceased teenage girls for eternity?
And teenage boys, too. Don't forget the drowners.
Yeah, like, just teenagers. He's got to put up with how many teenagers for eternity? Yeah. It's not just tea in those teacups,
No.
Oh, there's my other question, right? So the Rusalka come out and they clap Rosa's cheeks, and Wojciech's not there, and that surprised me.
Yeah, I thought it was him that was coming out of the river.
Me too.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "Here we go. He's gonna put this demon in his place." In her place.
But I did really like that it was the other Rusałki, just because like this entire time Gisela's been saying like, oh, I don't feel like I fit in, like I just want to go home, and all of the girls have just like, on more than one occasion showed up for her. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
keeping touch with her. They're like getting excited about like, oh, you have the exorcist tied around your little finger. What if you kiss him? And being
Mm-hmm.
just like really good, like friends and sisterly, very good support systems for her. And like I really liked the scene after they shut Rosa away in the teacup and they go back to the palace and Gisella's like half fading away, so she's like in fear, she's panicking, right? And she's in Yulia's room and they have this little heart to heart where Yulia is just like, I was jealous of you and I thought you wanted to abandon us and I thought you didn't like us and we just wanted to be there for you. And they
Yeah.
kind of have this heart to heart, and I thought that was really just like heart wrenching. Like, oh, they were. It was just, she was never mad at her. Just wanted to keep her
Mm-hmm.
around.
But what I really liked about that is that she was just like, yeah, I never had feelings for you. I wasn't interested in you that way. Like, I was just, like you said, I was just jealous. And I just wanted to keep you here. And I'm just like, not like, thank goodness Julia didn't love Gisela like that. But it's just like, it kind of felt a little bit better that not every single person was interested in her
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
that's
that
fair.
way.
Yeah, there were some times where it like reeked of Legend of Zelda games where every female character you come across just wants to jump your bones.
And I think that's, I don't want to say like an issue with YA that I have, but it tends to get to me sometimes where like every female like main character, like everyone just falls in love with them. Everyone just loves them.
Yeah.
It's very like self-indulgent and like almost like a self-inserty type fiction aspect of it.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that Alicia Yashinska's thinking that everyone should be in love with her by she's Gisela and that's how she's portraying herself. But like
Hmm.
I've noticed a lot of that in other media too. Like
Hmm.
especially when it's a writer or like someone who just really wants to portray this character as themselves and they're cool. It's like I've been rewatching Doctor Who recently and we got to the Moffat era and every single woman is just either born for the Doctor or falls in love with the Doctor. And
Yes.
that is incredibly frustrating to continue to watch. And I am really glad
Yes.
that that wasn't the case here, even though a part of me was like, oh yeah, I love my little sapphic monster romances. Just that knowing that Gisela has other types of love besides romantic in her life.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So there's also around this part when Kajik and Alexei start looking for Gisela. They eventually get there. They realize that like a fight happened on the docks, and they're like, "Well, she must be down below with Wojciech in the palace." And Kajik dives in.
No hesitation, strips his jacket off and boots and just
Yep.
sloops into the water like an Olympian.
Yes, just immediately in there, no thoughts given, just down. And then one of the drowners, comes up and starts to pull him downward and is drowning him, as the name might imply. And he gets his powers back. And I still don't know why his powers are back. I still don't know why they were gone in the first place. And there is like a few lines, I think from Susanna, that are just like, the saints wanted you to learn a lesson. And I'm like, okay, but that's still like speculation. We didn't really learn definitively why these things went away and why he got them back. But I like the moment that he got them back because he's like, get away. I have a thing to do. And he kind of demands that they come back in that
I
moment.
think it kind of came with in the moment where he wasn't trying to use his powers to destroy a demon, but rather to get them to back off so that he can go and help another one. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that was sort of like the line of thinking there. But even in his point of view, like his chapter, he had said, I have no idea why this happened. Why couldn't they have just sent me a dream instead of taking everything away and being cryptic about it? But I think it definitely has to kind of deal with his changing worldview. Like he went from such black and white thinking and now, he's trying to use his powers so that he can go save a demon that he would have previously tried to exorcise.
Yes.
I also think that it might have something to do with him as a person as well, because he used his powers, of course, to fight every single otherworldly being, but he also ostracized himself. Like he literally removed himself from society. Like he had no friends. He thought he was better than everyone. He was like,
Yeah.
I have this mission that no one else has, no one else understands. And then you see on St. John's Eve, like this one of this other kid who doesn't even recognize him is like talking to him is like, "Oh yeah, I'm surprised you're out here. Like, are you okay?" Sort of thing. And like I think he realizes at that point, like he will, and I think he realized it sooner too, that he kind of needs to open up and help people in the way that they need to be helped, and not really banish himself from the society, but to place himself in it so that people trust him and can come to
Yeah.
him. And I think that
Yeah.
goes hand in hand with helping the demons and the spirits and stuff, like just kind of being a nice person, being
Yeah.
Yeah.
sociable, being a good neighbor.
Yes, I totally agree that, he's got to open himself up, he's got to be more sociable, and he's got to accept his role in both worlds.
Mm.
Because at the beginning of
Hmm.
it, he's like, I am human, and that is it. And it's like, well, you're not just human. Like, you certainly,
Right.
you're not, like, possessed, but you have special powers. You are supernatural. You are not really 100% of the human world, and you should be acting as this bridge between them.
Yeah, did you notice in those chapters where he got his powers back, he referred to himself as a witch for the first time?
Oh.
Because he was like, in his desperation, he was just like, this is St. John's Eve. It's supposed to be when the witches are strongest. And that's, when he kind of thinks of himself in that way. And that's shortly before his powers come back. But
I missed that.
But there was also, like you were saying before, Katie, where like he had like that former classmate who came up and was like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, I didn't expect to see you here. You never really come out to these things." And he sort of has this realization of like, my loneliness was self-inflicted. I ostracized myself because I thought they didn't want me, but they
Right.
could have wanted him. He had been invited to go look for this magical fern with I forget his name, Adam, I think. And we all know magical fern looking
that?
is bumping
Look
uglies.
for the flower.
And he kind of realized, like, would I have been this way had I just opened up earlier?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like everyone was telling him, like Susanna and other people were like, yo, you need to have friends.
Okay, but Susanna later calls him out on that at the end, where
Yes.
he's like, okay, so that's a demon, that's a demon, that's a demon, and she's like, this is not what I meant when I said go make friends.
He goes, you weren't specific.
Here's a question that I had towards the middle and the end of this whole book. Do people not realize how many demons and spirits and Rosaki and all are in their town? Like, how many humans are there? Are there like 3 humans? Because every other person is some sort of otherworldly being.
Well, we were introduced to a few of like Kajik's and Alexi's like classmates and Adam, and there were a few others, but like a lot of it was just sort of the humans no longer believe, and it was just sort of like maybe at one point they knew, and they just kind of stopped believing after a while, and the demons could just kind of go as they please.
Yeah, I just was like, how many demons and spirit and nymphs are in this one town?
And
There's a
what
lot.
happened? What happened to the guy at the church? Because he never shows up
That's
again.
right. Father Pavo never shows up again.
Yeah, he comes out, he's like, I hate you and what you stand for. And Kajik is like, but I stand for the same things that you stand for. And Father Pavo was like, ha! And then whenever Kajik needs, like, blessed things, he's got to get little old ladies to steal for him. And that's the only time that Father Pavo comes back up. And I'm like, he could have been, like, a real thorn in the side for a lot of this.
That's just another, like, point, I think, in favor of there's going to be a second book. There's going to be a sequel, or it's a series, and Father Pavo and the church are maybe like a future villain, like it's the crumbs for the setup. But it's a villain that's being set up early, is kind of forgotten about, and then comes back in the sequel with a vengeance,
Yeah.
Plot twist, he's a vampire.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, if there is not a second book already lined up, I need to go to Australia and scream at somebody, because how dare you end this book where it ends if your plan was a standalone. Like, I'm going to put somebody's soul into a teacup. You're
We
going
better
in a
start the GoFundMe now.
Yeah.
Fund our trip to Australia so we can go yell at Alicia.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't even think it's Alicia's fault. I think this, like, it very much reeked of an editor made the point to be like, you know what, that's enough words right here.
Absolutely.
Just based on the rest of the writing, I don't feel like that was Alicia's idea to end it there. There was clearly more after that.
And even if it was her idea, like the editor should have been like, no, this is not where we're ending it.
Yeah. So either way, that's her editor's fault.
And like, especially because like this was, you know, marketed as a polyamorous romance, but we barely get to see the polyamorous part. Like we get them talking like, oh, I like you and I like him and we can both kiss each other and we're both okay with that. But we don't actually get to see the three of them actually kiss each other on screen. Like, it's just sort of, we get Khajiit and we get Alexei, and then we get Khajiit and then we get Gazelle, and then there's just... Gisela, I'm sorry. We see, you know, Gisela and Khajiit, but we don't see Gisela and Alexei. We don't see the three of them, you know, what their dynamic is like together. Now, that romance is, you know, actually open on the table, and that was frustrating.
Yes, it was.
I texted Jess that it was more of a love triangle than a polycule.
Yeah.
And I believe that is backed up, in my opinion, because when Gisela sees Alexei and Khajiit kissing, her first thought is, how dare they? And not, hey, can I join?
Well, yeah, because at that point, she had thought that Khajiit had betrayed her because, you know, she had asked Khajiit early on, like, do you like him? And he's like, no. Mm-hmm. And he's been struggling with this concept of liking Alexei and also, you know, growing to like Gisela.
Right.
And she didn't know that. She never really knew that, you know, a polycule was on the table until Khajiit brings it up himself in like the penultimate chapter.
Well, Khajiit also didn't know that a polycule was on the table because there's that point where he's kind of yelling at Alexei and he's like, why would you kiss me? Why would you do that? Well, you can't like us both. And Alexei's just like, yes, I can. You're like, can't I? I do. Like,
Khajiit also, you know, he was closeted with his family, so it makes sense that maybe he was also brought up in a very monogamously strict, you know, sort of ideology, and like it never really occurred to him that, you know, your love is not finite and you can love more than one person.
Right, and all of this is just, for me, just like, this is why it felt more of a love triangle than a polyamorous relationship or a polycule or a throuple. It just was not set up that way. It wasn't set up the way that they were marketing it.
It kept feeling like we were about to turn the page and maybe see it, but every time we turned the page, it was either the end of the chapter or the end of the book, and we never got to actually arrive there.
Yes. I feel like there needed to have been 5 more chapters to really just solidify what was promised in the marketing at the very least.
But if there's a sequel and that gets addressed, that's fine. I'm totally A-okay with that, so long as, you know, there actually is going to be a follow-up.
I am and I'm not, only because, like, bouncing off of what Katie is saying, the marketing here was that it was enemies to poly, and the poly does not actually happen on the page.
It only ever really is a concept that's discussed between them, because Alexei's true nature also never gets revealed until literally the last moment.
Yeah, so there's that point when they wake up in the palace with Wojciech, and Wojciech at first is like, wow, rude, you don't belong here. And then he immediately recognizes what Alexei is, and he's like, ew, you definitely don't belong here. And then he doesn't reveal what Alexei is to Khajiit or to Gisela. And I understand him not doing it for Khajiit because he's like, I don't really like you. And, you know, this other spirit is claiming that he's making you more amenable to spirits and that's good for everybody. But he doesn't go to Gisela and say, that boy is possessed.
He also doesn't talk to Gisela before she goes talk to Khajiit in the palace, though she does after the titular kiss when she wakes up and Wojciech's at her bedside. She's like, so how do you tell if a human is possessed by a demon? And that's like the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
So she does kind of figure it out on her own because even as she's being chased by Rosa to the riverbank, like before the fight, and she kind of gets this flashback to the night that she died, where she was in the woods and she met Alexei, and she realized that, oh, this is why he was so familiar to me. I've seen him before, and she sees the moment where the Bies is overtaking human Alexei's body, and that's what causes her to run. But Alexei was too weak to go after her, so Rosa chased her, right? And she gets all of this again when Rosa is chasing her for a second time. So she kind of starts to piece it together herself. And then obviously she doesn't really talk about it at first because at present she is trying not to get killed by a Bies and also trying not to fade because she's slowly turning into a ghost.
Yeah. I also want to note something about that ending revelation with Gisela, that it is the mark of a very good writer that I am not mad at Alicia for it taking that long. I am mad at Gisela as a character for taking that long to read into the signs that this boy is possessed. I think that's so great that we're talking about these characters and not like, oh, well, Alicia clearly should have done this or that or this. We're like, no, Gisela sucks. Like, she had such a handle on these characters, who they were, how they thought, and like their identities, that I like, if it weren't for where this book ends, I would give it a solid 5 stars. But because it feels like it leaves off in the middle of a chapter, I almost threw my Kindle across the room at 1 o'clock in the morning when I finished it.
I mean, the only reason I kind of understood, I sort of, because I saw that the last Alexei chapter was titled Epilogue, even though it was really difficult to read the chapter titles on the Kindle, just by the nature of the arc that we got. And like I had spotted the epilogue part. I was like, okay, so this probably isn't going to be too long, and it's either going to try to wrap something up or set something up. But I do agree that it kind of feels like it just cuts off suddenly. There's not a lot of resolution outside of just, yay, Gisela's human again, and, you know, yay, she kissed Khajiit, and Khajiit's no longer, you know, so morally rigid, and he's going to be helping demons now. And we don't know how human Alexei is going to survive this, because demon Alexei is like, yeah, I kind of need Rosa to make sure I stay on track and remember that I'm a demon and not a human. And he's struggling with the feelings that human Alexei is pushing through. And we never really kind of get the resolution of even Khajiit finding out what Alexei is, you know? We never see that he ever finds out that he's been possessed.
Right.
Yeah, that was a really big open-ended thing to just leave there. I was wondering this the other night about how differently the ending of the book would read if we never got any of Alexei's chapters, and we didn't know canonically that this boy is actually a BS. And as I told Katie, that ending was BS.
If we never had any of Alexei's point of view.
I did really like his chapters, though. So
I'm
glad they were in there. I just think that, so for me, the epilogue of this book is exactly the same as the epilogue of the Hunger Games for me, where that last like one page just completely ruined it for me. And I feel like it needed to end off with like Alexei either like walking off and saying like, I'm going to go figure out what happened and I'm going to get my revenge on Khajiit, or returning to the house and being like either like, I don't know, starting a fight with Khajiit or whatever, or just kind of being like, I'm just going to bide my time until it's right. Like just something like a little bit mysteriously chaotic.
Yes.
Like,
Definitely something shorter that was more visual.
Like, I feel like if we didn't get a single Alexi point of view throughout the rest of the story, and the only Alexi point that we got was the epilogue, where, you know, we kind of get this confirmation of, yes, he was a demon being possessed, but I feel like that would then paint his character completely differently, because it's the Alexi chapters that sort of, I don't want to say cement, but at least leave the suggestion of the potential polyamory. And the epilogue, you know, without all of that, would have just been very mysterious, would have been very much like Alexi's being set up as the next villain. Like, he's very clearly like, I want to know what happened here. I want to know what happened to Rosa, where she went, and what they did to her, so that I can exact my revenge, kind of situation, right? Mm-hmm. And it just sort of feels at odds with the way that the point of view from Alexi had kind of been going.
I agree.
Because I feel like without his point of views throughout the story, it would have just been a regular, like, enemies to lovers, no polyamory, just, you know, just Khajiit and Gisela focused, as opposed to adding Alexi into the mix as a potential third.
I agree, but also disagree, because Khajiit has those thoughts of, well, I like them both, and then you see the kiss.
Yes.
And Gisela also has that, I like them both, I don't know what to do. So I feel like it would still leave that mystery of, well, they both like each other and Alexi definitely kissed Khajiit and had almost a kiss with Gisela. So it would still kind of set up for that possible polycule, just maybe in the second book or a different book or whatever.
Or at the very least, I would have preferred to have seen Alexi at Khajiit's house when Gisela wakes up. Mm-hmm. And so there is that awkwardness where she suspects him at that point, and there is like maybe a very hesitant hug between the three of them. I would have preferred seeing some sort of scene like that to kind of cement that these three are connected more than just he likes him and he likes her and she also likes him. Like, that there's something connecting the three of them together, as opposed to this outward triangular shape that has been painted through this narrative.
It kind of feels like Alexi was tacked on at the end. Like, the main story was plotted out to be Khajiit and Gisela, right? And then Alexi was just kind of there as maybe like a background character or like a foil before he got promoted to third love interest or other love interest, right? Mm-hmm. And his chapters kind of got added in post-mortem almost, as it were.
Post-mortem?
Now that you said that, I definitely feel that.
Yeah. But it's weird because I think we're all on the same page where I appreciate them. They tie things together. Mm-hmm. They show a certain truth to the characters and the situation and the story as a whole. But they definitely do something for and to the story. Like Maggie has made this point where it's just like we wouldn't have gotten a lot of information had we not had Alexi's chapters. And I think my only real problem is Alexi's last chapter. Mm-hmm. And that's really the only thing making me question how this whole thing plays out if we don't have his point of view throughout it. And I'm just like I don't think that this story could have been told just from Gisela's point of view or just from Khajiit's point of view. I think it has to have all of them. Mm-hmm. If it was just Gisela, I probably would have tossed the book around like 10 chapters because I would have been like, you son of a... And something similarly with Khajiit, because he starts off very prejudiced, very racist about spirits. He's like, ugh, water nymphs. Ugh. Ladovec, BS. Like, he's so frustrated with everything around him, and he's got one story about them. That they are spirit and they are evil because they're not human. And I would have gotten very frustrated with that as well. And so, like, Alexi's chapters not only give us information, but also give me a break from these two early on, because early on, they are frustrating. I mean, wonderfully so. I think we all really connected to them. I think they really jump off of the page, but they are frustrating. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing to me that just thinking about this one ending epilogue completely changes how I feel about the rest of the presentation of the book.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, if there is not a second book coming, I am going to scream, and I mean it. We're going to start a GoFundMe, and we're all three of us going to go to Sydney and find her publisher and be like, yo, what the...
I agree. I also feel like if you took that last chapter out, the epilogue out, and just ripped it out of the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would kind of wonder, like, what about Alexei?
Yeah.
And then you would want, like, and I think I texted you this privately the other night after I finished the book, and I said, if you take that chapter out, I would have been like, give me that second book right now. Right now. I need to know what's going on with Alexei.
Yeah.
I think in both instances, whether we have the epilogue there or not, like, it feels like we get to the end of this book and it's like we're missing something. It's like we missed a step on the stairs, and it feels incomplete in either situation, like whether or not we have it.
Yes.
I just feel if the epilogue wasn't there, you'd have that complete mystery.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is the fault of marketing, right? Because Katie had pointed out earlier that the whole marketing around this book was that there is a polycule. And so our focus for the plot of the story was all of this coming together into a polycule. And if the marketing for the book had been dead girl needs kiss from boy, then we would have been focused on, okay, does she get her kiss or not? And, like, okay, if she kisses him, does he die? Like, right, because it's this fatal kiss is the title. I feel like because of the marketing, our focus was absolutely not on the actual plot of the book.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say, like, every single episode that we record, we're like, okay, so when are we going to see, you know, the polycule? When is Alexei going to redeem himself? Is it going to be Alexei? Is it going to be somebody else? Like, we were high-key focused on the romance itself.
Yeah.
And it never really kind of came to fruition. And I think that's probably why we're so frustrated with the ending, is that we never get the thing that we were promised. It's like you open up a romance book expecting and being told that you're going to get a happily ever after, but the book ends the chapter before the happily ever after.
Right. And we don't even know if we're going to get that at all. Because with the way that it could go based off the epilogue, he could find out what happens to Rosa and just go for revenge and completely skip being in a relationship with the other two.
Right?
Not to mention what Khajiit's response is going to be to the revelation that Alexei's not human at this point. He's been possessed.
Yeah.
And the fact that if the demon ever leaves Alexei, human Alexei is not going to remember anything, because human Rosa's body was left behind when they fought off the Rosa the Bies and, you know, captured her in a teacup. And Rosa's human form was found, and then she's recovering, and she's like, oh, I have no idea what happened, my memory is so foggy, and everyone's just saying, oh, she just hit her head. So we know that if Alexei splits from his human or demon form, like, human Alexei's not going to remember anything. So he's not going to be like, well, I have all these memories of us being together, we should remain together. It's going to be like, I don't know why you're talking to me. I don't know who you are, Gazella. You're just some random girl. Because human Alexei never met her. It was just demon Alexei, right?
That we know of, because the only part we have of them together when he was human is when she sees that he is getting possessed. But we don't actually know if they, like, met before that, because even Gisella's memories are, like, foggy at best.
Right.
It just all screams, we need a sequel. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even in the sequel, we're not promised what it was marketed as, polyamorous.
Yes.
So that's kind of an issue for me. Like, one of the reasons why it just won't be a 5-star for me.
Yeah. Everything else, though, was so good. There's so much good writing in here. The characterization is great. The world building, I feel like, was, like, a little rocky, right? Because we were like, what year is it?
To be fair, I was thinking, actually, as I was reading this last bit of chapter, if we were given a map at the beginning of the book, I think a lot of our issues with the setting would have been quelled. Like, we would have known going in, okay, this is Second World. The year doesn't matter. What we know about the modern world and the timelines don't matter, because this is, you know, Caldella, or I forget, Kalela or something, whatever it was. The name of the second world. This is a different world. Okay, we're okay. We can forgive a lot more, knowing that it is definitively from the start because of this map that is second world. We don't care about anachronisms. We don't care about timeline coherency with our world, right?
Yeah. All right. Official final thoughts. Recommend or don't recommend?
I would really want to see a sequel where we get definitively whether or not they become or remain a polycule, or, Alexei is maintaining his human form as, still being possessed and actually becoming a villain, or coming around to merging human and demon form, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really would have just wished that there actually was a bit more of that polycule on the page, or at least gotten to kind of a little bit earlier, because this whole time I'm thinking like, oh, we're going to get the polycule at like the third act, beginning of the third act, and it's going to be an interesting revelation when it's found out that he's a Bies, that Gisela's a water nymph, all these sort of complicated, interconnected relationships, but we never really got that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely a recommended book that I would hand off to a friend. Okay. And in the way that, the selection was for me back in college, it would have been, hopefully it would lead to those 3 a.m. texts saying, what do you mean this is it? That's how they end it. When's the next book coming out kind of feeling.
That was a fun night for no one who didn't turn off their alarms and ringtones to go to sleep. Katie, though, same question. Despite this ending that we all are critical of, would you recommend this book?
I would absolutely recommend this book, but I would say, here, read this. Don't read the epilogue. I also only took off half a point, so like half a star. So I gave it a 4.5, and I'm going to say I'm very excited for the sequel, the potential sequel, and I'm going to lie to myself and to all of you and say when the potential sequel comes out, if it does, I will not be so focused on the romance aspect. I'll be more focused on the plot. And that's a lie, but I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah, we'll be focused on the plot, like good law-abiding citizens.
Yeah. The quote-unquote plot is actually the three of them kissing each other for 20 pages.
We're focused on the plot. It's just Khajiit taking his glasses off. Oh, yeah.
The plot.
The plot, right.
Anyway, Jessica, what about you?
Oh.
What would you recommend?
I feel like, similarly to Katie, I actually knocked off like a whole star for that ending. I was very upset with where that stopped because it did feel like mid-thought. And it reminded me of the ending of Serpent and Dove, where it just kind of ended mid-conversation, and I, did not enjoy having that feeling again, but it is still definitely, a solid 4 stars. It's something that I would recommend. But it would come with the caveat of, yes, all of the marketing says there's a polyamorous romance here, but you're not going to see it in this first book. And just as Katie says, do not read the epilogue.
Yeah, the epilogue kind of gives mid-season cliffhanger finale, back when there were enough episodes in a season for there to be a mid-season finale, right? It just kind of feels like this is the moment where they're going to pan out on this line of dialogue, and then it'll just cut to black and say, to be continued.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those moments.
To be continued.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exactly that fade to black, and you just stand up off your couch screaming at the TV, like, what the? Where the is the rest of it? And so, you watch all of the credits, because you're like, surely there's a stinger after this, and there's not. It's just the acknowledgments, and you're mad about
it. I think it's fair to say that, Jess, you were the angriest out of all of us with the ending. Whereas I think me and Maggie were just like, this is disappointing. And that was it.
You know what it is because I've read more than a few other books that do that. And so it's infuriating now when it happens. It's not just like, oh, that was a weird place to end. It's like, if I had a nickel for every time they did this, I'd have $3, which isn't a lot of money, but it is a lot of times for books to just end in the middle of a conversation.
And your guys' reactions before I finished the book, and I was blowing it out of proportion in my head, thinking, worst case scenario, this is going to be awful, this is going to be terrible, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to end with everyone's death. It'll be a Shakespearean tragedy like no other. And I get to the end and I'm like, oh, that's not that bad.
Right. Like, Jess was like, let me know if you throw your Kindle or not. And I'm just like, oh, is like Gisela not going to become human? Like, is it like that she fades away, or the kiss doesn't make her human, or whatever? And I'm again like worst case scenario thinking, and then it ends like that, and I'm like, yeah, that was disappointing. I'm not angry, but I'm very disappointed.
I am angry. You know what it is? If I could sit this publisher down, they would get a very, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. And like, they would just have to deal. Yeah, they would just have to deal with that tone.
With the angry tone.
That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. Click that follow button and subscribe to the show, share this episode, and drop a review. We're a small corner of the internet, and every little bit helps. Visit link.bio/bookedallnight. Again, that is lnk.bio/bookedallnight to see our other book reviews, find us on Instagram and TikTok, and join our Discord community where we'll be running all our giveaways, posting excerpts, and streaming our interviews live. So join today, invite your friends and fellow readers, and help us get to 100 members. When the server hits 100, we'll host our first giveaway. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook. Whenever you share an episode, be sure to say hi to our guy in the sound booth. Join us next week when we launch into Prince of Glass and Midnight by Lindsay Miller. Until next time, my little Libranauts, this is Jessica Mary, Leigh, and Magdalyn Ann signing off and reminding you all to stay booked all night.